Welcome to EOTalks, Eastern Oregon's very own talk show, only here on EO Alive.
Hey, Eastern Oregon, thank you for joining us today. It's my privilege today to have Terri Sorensen, the CEO of Friends of the Children. Friends of the Children is an organization that serves now 48 chapters. She's going to tell us about that. And the La Grande chapter that is here is a little over a year old, and we're going to kind of dive into that. So, how are you, Terri?
I'm doing great.
Good. Hey, thank you for jumping in with me today. So, what is Friends with the Children? Tell me what this is.
Sure. So Friends of the Children, we select children age 4 to 6 who have multiple risk factors, things that they were born into that maybe aren't their fault, and we select them for our program, and they get a paid professional mentor that we call a friend for their whole childhood.
Oh, wow.
Age 4 to 6 all the way through graduation.
Okay. And so then it's a long haul. I mean, it's a big commitment, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the unique things about us. We stay with youth and their families for 12 years no matter what.
Wow. So tell me a little bit bigger picture of Friends with the Children, Friends for the Children.
Friends of the Children.
Friends of the Children, thank you. Friends of the Children. Yeah, how did it get started and where is it at now?
Sure. So we were started in Portland, Oregon, so right here in the state of Oregon, almost 34 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Our founder, Duncan Campbell, he himself would have been a child in the program if it existed. He went on to do well and founded a timber investment company, and the first thing he did when he sold that company was take resources and hire a researcher to determine what would have helped children like him who fell through the cracks. The result was a researcher went 2 years around the country looking for that program to bring back to Portland, and instead he came back and he said, I have the core tenets of the program. Start early, stay with the kids for the long haul, 12 plus years no matter what, hire paid professionals to do this work, because the children and families we serve have so many things happening out of their control that they need that consistent one-on-one over the long haul, and have a manageable number of children that each mentor or friend works with. And so that's 8. They each work with 8 children and families as their full-time job, and it's a paid position with benefits, and yeah.
So when did he do this studying and come up with these tenets? What year? Give me an idea.
Sure. Well, he started the research in 1991
okay.
With a researcher named Dr. Orrin Bolstad, and the Friends of the Children program was formally launched in Portland in 1993.
Okay. And at one point, you were the executive director of that program, right?
In Portland,
yeah.
Yes. So I've been with the organization 23 years. I'm actually a recovered CPA, certified public accountant. Helps me every day in running a national nonprofit.
Right.
But I started as the finance director for the Portland chapter, did that for about 2 years, and then filled in as the interim executive director of Friends of the Children Portland. And Duncan asked me to do that, the founder, and I said, sure, I'd be happy to be the interim, but I don't want the job full time. And here I am 23 years later. So I led our Portland chapter for 12 years, and the last year and a half of that was really restarting a national expansion. So over since 2012, we've grown from 5 chapters of Friends of the Children to now 48 locations across the country.
Wow. I mean, it's mind-boggling. So give me an idea of, are they all over the country? Where are these 48 chapters at? Are they regionally located? Give me an idea.
Sure, there are more on the West Coast.
Okay.
Oregon has the most locations at 7. 7 different chapters across the country. So we're really kind of statewide in Oregon now. California has they have 10 locations now, because Los Angeles has really embraced this model, and we have 5 different locations just within Los Angeles alone. We're up in Seattle, Tacoma, Southwest Washington and Vancouver, but we're also on the East Coast. We are in New York, Boston, Tampa. We're in Texas, 3 locations there now, in Houston, Austin, and Dallas. We're in some rural and tribal locations, Rapid City, South Dakota, the Ogallala Lakota Nation on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. We're in Montana with an Eastern Montana chapter, a Western, and we're on the Flathead Reservation in partnership with the Salish Kootenai tribes.
Wow.
We're in Klamath Falls.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of everything. There's a need for Friends of the Children everywhere, and we're pretty opportunistic. So we only go where we're invited, where communities invite us in, and then we work with that community to raise the capital to bring the program there.
Wow. So I guess let's zoom back in on the model of reaching a particular kid.
Yes, sir.
So I was a youth pastor for 6 years, been involved in youth. I taught college for a total of 4 years. So I understand kids, I understand their development and so on and so forth. And then also when there's a sign of maybe they're in trouble or they need something. And on our programming here, EO Alive has a fairly significant sports coverage thing that we do. And so we're really involved with sports. The point being is that we understand how important it is to have coaches and music teachers and those individuals that connect with kids. We're involved with Youth for Christ, but there are some times that those kids don't find a connection. And I guess the question is, are those the kids that that you're looking for? I mean, talk to me about what this typical kid, if there is such a thing, what this typical kid looks like who is really can benefit from Friends of the Children.
Sure. Well, we believe and know that every child has the potential to, do great things and use their special skills and talents and develop them, but they may have been born into a situation with a lot of strikes against them.
Right.
Perhaps they have a parent who's been incarcerated, who's had substance abuse problems. Perhaps they themselves, live in poverty, are behind academically. Like, we really evaluate all it's called the adverse childhood experiences that a young child may have had by age 4 to 6, and we are looking to select those kids who have the most adverse childhood experiences and the fewest protective factors.
Okay.
And a protective factor might be a grandparent who, is helping raise the child and is providing, good support.
So a guardrail of sorts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But because we are going to provide a paid professional mentor over the long haul, we're really looking for those children who need the most support.
Yeah.
So all children can use mentors for
Right.
sure. The coaches, the
Right.
youth pastors, like you're saying, but really looking for those who have the most risk factors, but have the greatest potential.
Yeah. I would imagine that there are more kids in every situation than what you can what you can meet. I mean, talk to me about that.
Yes, and that's a really hard part. The way we select our kids, there's 3 different ways that we do depending on the community. So the first is to go into preschool and kindergarten classrooms like Head Start or kindergarten and observe the kids for 6 weeks, looking for those kids who aren't coming to school, very aggressive, very withdrawn, really could use some support. Then we work with teachers, counselors, principals to learn more about the situation and whether that's a child who really might benefit from having a friend in their life. We also partner with other nonprofits who may be serving the family in some capacity. Perhaps the family is homeless or, different factors, and we will partner with that other nonprofit or center to help determine if that's a child who might be a fit. And then finally, we work with child welfare systems, so the foster care system, looking for those children who either have had calls that may put them into the system or have already been in the foster care system, and we will select them to have a friend for 12 plus years no matter what, which provides great stability.
Right. Wow. So how was it like at first? I mean, so the founder came up with these principles, these tenets, you know. So how did that move into actually having the first chapter? And like, oh yeah, we gotta, I mean, did he know from the beginning that, hey, this is going to be a 12-year thing? Or, I mean, talk to me about how the plan and the development came together initially.
Yeah, so, you know, Dr. Orrin Bolstad came back with the research, and Duncan Campbell, our founder, got together and they mapped out and hired the first 3 friends in Portland, Oregon to work with the first 24 children. So each friend has 8 children.
Right.
And
this was in what year again?
1993.
93, okay.
Yes. And, you know, really in the beginning, it was just about that consistent adult relationship, showing up for 4 hours a week with every child, week after week for the long term. And we saw tremendous success. Each year, a new cohort would be added of anywhere from 2 to 4 friends, and
And a cohort is another group of kids, right?
It's another friend with 8 children.
Okay, thank you.
And so that's how we think of it. And so each year more would be added until, you know, the Portland chapter at one point was serving 500 children. Now with the Southwest Washington chapter, that's kind of made it a little smaller, but still serving about 400 children at that first site. From there, after we were a few years in, and the first graduating class was in 2003, we had other cities coming to us. New York City, Klamath Falls, Oregon, Seattle, and Boston all came to us within a short time period and said, would you start a chapter of Friends of the Children in our location? And back in the day, Duncan is an amazing entrepreneur. And if there was one funder and they said, we want this program, he did it. And that was great for those first 5 chapters. But then we really learned some things. Like, it's an expensive program, and that's for a reason. Like, for every dollar invested, the return is over $7 or $900,000 for every youth that meets our outcomes, which is graduation from high school. And we just got new data, not even on our website yet, but 90% graduate from high school.
Wow.
Most are the first in their families to do so. 96% avoid the justice system, and over 60% have had a parent who's incarcerated. 98% avoid teen parenting, and over 60% were born to a teen parent. And 92% go on to what we call one of our 3 E's: enrollment in post-secondary, enlistment in the military, or employment in a living wage job.
Wow.
So those are our outcomes, and as we saw our youth start to accomplish those things and really break the cycle of generational poverty, we had these other cities coming to us. Over time, the program has gotten even more evolved. Like, we work on literacy, mental health, all different factors and core assets, we call them, with the youth, like developing a growth mindset, self-reliance, finding their spark. All of those things are what help all children thrive.
Wow. So let's go back. You said all of fascinating information and statistics. You said for every dollar invested, you get
$7.
$7 back. And so, but this is not a typical ROI. I mean, that doesn't come in income. That comes in how do you measure that? It comes in result, or influencing a kid. Yeah. I mean, talk to me about that.
Sure. So we had the Harvard Business School Association of Oregon, so a group of Harvard MBAs who spent over 9 months evaluating our model and doing the study that came up with the ROI. And about a third of that $7 comes from the graduation of high school, getting a better job, paying taxes, less.
So there's a value put on that for each kid.
Yes.
Okay.
Avoiding the justice system.
Right. Okay.
Well over $100,000 for any juvenile that enters
So,
the
and in that particular case, is like, if they were in the justice system, what it would be costing public dollars, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, avoiding teen parenting. As a teen parent, you are much more likely to end up in poverty. And if you can delay having children until you're out of your teens and have your education, you are so much more successful. So that's where the $7 ROI and $900,000 per youth.
And you said 60% of the kids came from teen parenting. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, but 98% of them are getting through the program without teen parenting.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. And that's fascinating. So, but how do you pay for this? This is this is gigantic. I imagine, when you have a successful model and you have, I'm thinking about the Portland chapter, and then you have these cities come in and, hey, we want this happen. How do you even scale that? I don't know. That seems like a lot. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, when I came into the national role, the first thing I looked at is how could we scale this? Because we had the evidence that it works. And actually later this year, a randomized control trial, which is the gold standard of efficacy for a program, will come out with some articles about a randomized control trial that's been going on with our model for 18 years now.
Okay.
So it's really exciting.
Yeah.
But anyway, how do we scale it? So we knew we had this model that works. And I talked to everyone out there like, tell me about how we can scale this model. And they were like, it cannot be scaled.
Okay, so tell me, at what point did you get involved in the scaling part of that?
So in 2012. And at that time, we had 5 locations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, 5 locations. So I really took a good look at it. I got some pro bono support to create a business plan on how we would scale it. And I took that and entered a competition for business plans in New York City. And we placed in the top 3. We did not win, but we placed in the top 3. So I went back, and the following year, I got more pro bono support and wrote, adapted the business plan, pitched it in partnership with our program director in New York City, and we won.
Oh, wow.
So then I knew we had a winning plan, and we took that to an investor, and we asked for $5 million to get us started, to ensure there would always be a national Friends of the Children to help ground and scale this program as it grew. And to my surprise, within 1 month, that investor wired $5 million to us. And
wow.
We were off and running.
Wow.
So we've always thought big. We know that childhood poverty is a really big problem. It costs the country, billions or trillions of dollars, and yet there's so much potential. We want every child to have a healthy, young adult and livelihood to support their families and really break that cycle of poverty. So we knew we had something there. So from there, we launched a $25 million campaign. And at the time, our national office was operating on about $1.2 million a year. So it was really aggressive to say. And I had a board member who had been in venture capital, and he said, let's just raise a big fund and really go to scale. And I kind of thought he was crazy, but I'm like, okay, he's a smart man. I'm going to go along with it. The board seems to support it. So we set off to raise $25 million. And we got a grant from the federal government it was a matching grant where we raised $4 million, and we found philanthropy to raise $4 million. Mm-hmm. And then we went out to communities and said, who would like to have Friends of the Children? And you have to match the money we give you. Okay. And with that, we were off and running with $13 million. To my surprise, within 2.5 years, we had closed out the $25 million. And the last piece was Michael Jordan, basketball legend. Michael Jordan heard about us when we launched in Charlotte and Chicago, 2 of his favorite cities. And he invested multi-millions in us. Wow. Through the proceeds of his Netflix documentary called The Last Dance.
Wow.
And we were off and running and added 7 new chapters. And so once we did that, we said we can raise more money for this model that works.
Right.
And we set about a $50 million campaign.
Wow.
And to our great surprise, Mackenzie Scott, former Amazon anyway, she invested $44 million in our network,
Oh,
which
wow.
has really helped us exponentially,
Wow.
now get to 48 locations around the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So just literally through, once you had the evidence, then you projected the vision, and people just, out of the goodness of their own hearts, just gave.
That
is
is
that
right.
is that a good explanation?
It is. I think they saw both the numbers and the success of
Yeah.
the model, but they also in their heart, like it just makes sense. If you
Right.
have a stable adult role model for the long haul,
Right.
it makes sense. And so people invested with both their head and their heart.
Well, and I think that, the struggle in anything like this is that you can have a great idea, and people will give money to it. But if it doesn't reach the individual, if it doesn't make a difference, then it's just a good idea that you're throwing money after, And so I think at the very crux of this is you're making you make a difference in the lives of individual kids.
Absolutely. And that's all Duncan, our founder, wanted to do.
Yeah.
He said if he changed one child's life, it would all be worth it.
Right.
And instead, he's changed thousands of
Wow.
youth's lives who've graduated the program. And right now, we have well over 3,000 youth and 15,000 youth and family members who are benefiting from Friends of the Children around the country.
Wow. So currently, how many? There are 15,000 kids currently involved?
Over 3,000 children,
Okay.
but with the average family size that we serve is about 5 children.
Uh-huh.
And so about 15,000 children and family members are benefiting from their friend.
Okay, got
Over
it.
time, we've made it a 2-generational model to really support the family as well, the siblings, etc. Still, one child is at the focus, but we found that our program really has a ripple effect.
Right.
We see caregivers going back to get their GEDs, go on to college,
Got it.
do better for themselves. We see what we do with the one child really carrying over to siblings. The child in the program may be the first to go to college, but guess what? Their siblings after that
Right.
see them, and they're now a role model.
Right. So how do you, zooming in on that individual friend, that mentor, that paid mentor. So I would imagine there's some problem solving along the way. You're intersecting with a kid, and there's a plan, but there are other extenuating circumstances. How does a friend, how does that mentor deal with that? What can they do to help with some of those other situations?
One of the friends' roles is actually similar to a life navigator.
Okay.
So, when a family loses their housing or,
Right.
their car breaks down, and so usually it's a single parent family, can't go to work, and
Right.
they're going to lose their job. Friends help navigate getting them other resources from other organizations to, lift them up in a variety of ways. So it is complicated. Like, we don't stop serving them because they've moved. As long as they stay within 30 miles,
Yeah.
they keep their same friend. And now that we have so many locations around the country, we have about 40 youth who've moved to different places entirely beyond 30 miles, and a new friend's location picks them up. Because once you're in the program, there's really nothing you can do that would get you kicked out of the program. We're going to show up for you no matter what.
Yeah, well, and I can just imagine in that particular, like in a real life situation where a mom of multiple kids, and one of the kids is a part of Friends with the Children, and so she's navigating this, but at some point there'd be like, I love that my kid is in this, but we just got to eat tonight. We got to, how do they, I don't know, is that a real life scenario that happens?
It is a real life scenario. I'd love to share the story of Reginald, a young child that was selected in our program when he was 5 years old. And he, in his kindergarten year, was suspended from school over 20 times. Like, he was throwing over desks, he was stealing candy off the teacher's desk and selling it at recess. He was very resourceful. And when he got his friend Gary, Gary quickly learned that Reginald loved to play basketball. That was like a real spark for him. And so he would take 5-year-old Reginald out on the basketball court and they'd play. And then Gary would intentionally go up and score more points than Reginald, which would cause Reginald to get very mad. He would call himself stupid, I'm no good, he would throw the ball. And so Gary had insight to, that's what was happening into the classroom too. So Gary pulled him aside and he said, I see you're getting really upset. What can we do that would calm you down? Like, what if you just said, hey, I need a minute, you stepped aside, you took some deep breaths, and then we start playing it again. And so as the next school year came into play, when stuff would happen at school that would upset Reginald, Gary said, and Gary would go to school with them. Friends go to school, not full-time, but they go to school 50% of their time is spent in school and 50% out of school. So he would see this going on, and he'd say to the teacher, I'm working with Reginald on these things to calm him down, to have him be more productive in your class and less of a distraction. And so, sure enough, he would get upset that he missed a math problem and throw a tantrum, and Gary would say, hey, this is just like the basketball court. Let's ask the teacher for a little break, take some deep breaths, and go back to work. So the second year, he was only suspended 10 times. And during this, Gary was in touch with the single mom who also had other children and was working. And the mom was like, I'm going to lose my job if I keep getting called by the school to come, to pick Reginald up, and then my whole family will suffer.
Right.
And actually said to Gary, I don't know if I can keep Reginald. Which really for a parent to say that, you're desperate.
Right.
And so Gary went with the mother to the school. They were able to get him an individualized education plan that prevented the school from suspending him and created a plan for working with Reginald. And so over time, Reginald went on to go to college, and he actually switched and played baseball at a junior college prior to that. But really, without Gary's support as a friend, I don't know that he would have made it.
Right. And all of that problem solving that kind of happened along the way.
Absolutely.
So is being a friend, I mean, you've been doing this a while, what percentage of people are like really staying with it for 12 years? I mean, it seems like a very taxing thing.
Yes. Well, we found that asking for 12 years in a job interview is too much.
Yeah, that would be a little overwhelming, yeah. Because people are thinking about 12 years from now, I want to... Yeah.
So we asked for a 3-year commitment.
Okay.
And again, this is a full-time job. You work with 8 children and
Right.
families. You go through a series of 4 to 5 interviews because we really want to test your judgment and your thinking, because there can be some really challenging situations. And not that you have to have them all figured out, but that you have good judgment of how you would figure them out.
Yeah.
And so by hiring for 3 years, we get folks an average of 5 to 7 years in this role, although we've had many who have been there 12 years and beyond
Wow.
and take on new cohorts
Yeah.
of kids. Because I think, while it is a job and a living wage, you come in and you form relationships with all of these children and their families. And I was just meeting last week with 3 friends who had been with us a long time, but they'd been gone from the organization now for about 10 years. And I asked how all 8 of their youth were doing, and each of the 3 knew all their 8 youth
Wow.
and what they were doing now. In fact, one of the stories is so amazing. Just 2 weeks ago, we had our first youth who graduated law school.
Oh, wow.
So not only was he the first in his family to graduate high school and then college, went to Western Oregon, he just graduated from Gonzaga Law School.
Oh, wow.
And he has a job clerking for the Washington State Chief Justice
Wow.
of the Supreme Court.
Wow.
So that, not all the stories are to that degree.
Right, but still.
But it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. How about some of the kids that you knew and that you were with when you were an executive director. Have you maintained some of those connections?
I have. In fact, one of them will be speaking at the Eastern Oregon event tonight.
Okay.
A young man named Jimmy who graduated from the Portland program when I was executive director. And he had challenges. Every male member of his family had gone to prison.
Wow.
And Jimmy, I still remember, in high school, as high schoolers sometimes do pranks, he didn't have a driver's license, and he was driving a car, and he got pulled over. And what do you do when every male in your family has gone to prison? He ran.
Yeah.
And the police, got him, and we personally sent the friend to testify, like, he's got someone good in his life, here is why he ran,
Right.
Give him another chance, and
Yeah.
they did, and he has gone on to graduate from college, major in criminal justice, works for a judge in Oregon doing this work. He also has 2 children, and he's amazing. And I remember way back when he would come
Right.
with me, and yeah, so really rewarding.
Yeah, and I would imagine that is for you always have that connection. I mean, you're dealing with 48 chapters now all over the nation, and all of the financial burden of all of that. But I mean, you still have that individual connection with Jimmy and others like him.
Absolutely, and that's what keeps me doing this work,
Yeah.
seeing those youth be successful. Another story, I was out in New York in October, and one of the former youth in the New York program now works for Friends of the Children New York, and he gave me a big hug. His name is Chris, and he just said, thank you for helping all the youth who are like me, going around the country expanding this program. It works. I wouldn't be here. I'd be in a much more challenging situation if I was here at all.
Yeah.
And so that's what really does make it worthwhile.
Wow, awesome. So let's talk about the LeGrand chapter.
Yes.
And I mean, how did that get started?
Well, there are some very generous people from LeGrand, and we're really proud of this chapter. So I shared with you about, Michael Jordan investing in us.
Right.
Well, a man named Gary Rude of Rude Investments heard about that investment, and he said, I would really like to make an investment. I believe in this program. I think for Friends of the Children, this could be transformative if I made a big investment. And so he has committed $33 million to Friends of the Children, inspired by Michael Jordan. And I think he was also inspired by Phil Knight, who's
Right.
given away his money. And anyway, Gary and Christine Rude is the key to LeGrand. She grew up here. She was raised here. And she said, I would like to start a chapter in LeGrand if you're willing to help. And we said, well, let us do some due diligence. Let us see if this can be successful. And she introduced us to Cody, with the Sheriff's Department, and he was instrumental in helping us. A young woman, Angela Groves, who works for us as our Chief Development Officer, and she grew up in rural Oregon.
Right.
She made it her passion and was making trips over here and working with Christine to get introduced to schools and philanthropists and all the folks, and was able to raise $1.2 million to establish this chapter in LeGrand, Oregon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so help me understand how, because when you take on a kid or you start a program, you're at least committing to 12 years of whatever cohorts you start, right? I mean,
Right.
there's no saying 3 or 4 years from now, oh, this isn't penciling out for us,
Right.
right? I mean, so how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, it's tricky, funding 12 years of programming
Yeah.
we don't shoot to do that. We take it incrementally. So
Yeah.
3 years at a time, we consider sustainable funding. So we look for folks who will invest in at least 3-year increments.
Okay.
And that, by doing that, it's been pretty successful for us. And we look at everything from, we're mostly private philanthropy, so individuals, corporations, foundations. And there are foundations throughout Oregon that are funding this chapter in La Grande, and that's amazing. We also look for government funding. We don't have a lot of it, but we look for it, and so yeah.
So then, so a 3-year chunk, but the next year you're looking for another 3-year. So every year you're at least 3 years out, hopefully, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So because like if you have one donor is like, okay, I'll do 3 years, and they start at year 1, well, they're going to go 1 through 3. Well, then year 2, you're hoping that you're going to get another 3-year donor, and they're going to go 2 through 4, right? Is that kind of the plan?
That is actually the plan. And you know, when I say 1.2 million was raised for La Grande, that represented paying for 100% of the program in year 1,
Okay.
which has already, you know, concluded. 50% in year 2 and 25% in year 3. So
Okay.
it gives Nisha, the executive director, a chance to really implement the program well, hire the right people in the team, and then really work to sustain the program with additional fundraising.
Okay, so then how does she make up, and she was on a program with us not too long ago, and I asked her, so how do you make up for the weaning off period? So I mean, so this coming year, she'll get 50%
Right.
of what? So then how is she making up that other 50%?
Yeah, so she is working to secure grants from foundations out there to get individual support.
And I'm talking about this particular one, but I mean, this is the same pattern, all of them, right?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So, you know, hosting events, I'm on my 4th fundraiser, we call them, in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
2 million was raised in New York City 3 weeks ago. 1.6 was raised in Portland last week. And, you know, we're really hopeful that a lot of money is raised here at the La Grande event.
Yeah. Well, right. And that was part of, you know, we talked a little bit of ahead of time, and there's a vast amount of difference between La Grande and you know, those other. Tell me how other towns that are similar to us, population and rural, and how are they doing? How are they funding this plan?
Yes, you know that when we have an amazing funder who really helps us with rural and tribal. And you might know Les Schwab's tire centers. Well, Les Schwab's granddaughter is a huge supporter of Friends of the Children and grew up in rural Oregon.
Yeah, and I think Angela and I have spent quite a bit of time together, and she's a friend of Angela's, right? I mean, yeah, because Angela grew up kind of in that area, if I remember right.
And she worked for Les Schwab.
Yes, okay.
And
all right.
So anyway, when the Echo Fund is the name of the fund, has given us over $12 million in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And specified that it is for rural and tribal.
Okay.
And so that's been amazing. Since that time at National, we've established a rural and tribal fund. So we're raising $15 million nationally to support rural and tribal sites across the country. And so there are people in Texas, in San Francisco, in other places that are willing to fund rural and tribal Friends of the Children,
Wow.
So we know that we nationally have to help support when rural chapters don't have the kind of resources and funding opportunities in their own communities.
Well, and certainly a part of the research that you're doing ahead of time
Yes.
is, I mean, you've been doing it a while, and so you know what is going to work and what's not going to work. Because at the end of the day, if you start something with a bang and it's not sustainable, then I mean that's not a great thing. So have you had any failures, for lack of a word? I mean, have you had any chapters that were like, man, they just struggled, or I don't know. Is that a fair question?
It is a fair question. I will say not since I've been the national CEO. I was sharing early on that Duncan, our founder, he was so entrepreneurial that he would start with one funder and a small amount of money. And I think what we saw when that happened in a couple of cases, in 2008, when there was a financial downturn, 3 chapters closed. And so we really learned lessons from that when I took over at National, like how do we prevent that from happening?
Right.
And so in addition to raising $1 to $2 million up front, before we will start a chapter, we make sure there's a group of champions that is widespread, right, across individuals, schools, government, stakeholders, like people who really in the community care about this program. That's one of the requirements, and we obviously really have this in LeGrand.
Yeah.
We also make sure that the initial funding, that no more than 40% comes from any one funder. And that's a rule we've stuck with, because if you base it all on one funder and for some reason they can't continue to fund you, you've got some issues.
Right. But if you have a bigger funder, though, they can fund 40% in many different chapters.
Places.
Right.
And that's exactly what we've done with Echo Fund, with Root Investments, with different folks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your hopes here for? Well, let's start for LeGrand first, and then what are your hopes for nationwide? What are some of the goals that you kind of see out there?
Yeah. Well, for LeGrand, I'm just so happy this program is here and is successful. And, a lot of it really comes down to the leadership. And we're so fortunate to have Nisha as the leader here. She is so committed to the program, so committed that she left her position at the school district after many, many years. So that's the number one thing. I want to just see this program thrive, continue to grow, and serve children in this area, lift graduation rates, lift young adults going into breaking that cycle of poverty and really going into careers that they love and can support their family on.
Right.
That's the long-term goal. And for the nation, I'd really like to see us in all 50 states. We had a goal to be in 25 locations by 2025, and as of today we're in 48, and it's 2026.
Right.
So we really overshot that goal, and that's a good thing for children. So we're working hard to make that dream. Our vision is that every child who would need a friend would have one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll ever get there, but it's a good aspirational goal.
Right. So I'm involved in the local LeGrand Main Street downtown, which is the Downtown Association, and the Chamber of Commerce. I've served on both of those boards. And those executive directors are kind of burnout positions and part of it is because we're a small community and we don't have the funds to really attract some of the quality people that are looking for those kind of jobs. Okay, that relates to Nisha. She was a teacher. And so to poach her, that's probably not a good, but to poach her to get her to do this, that takes some resources. And when I look at the plan, it's almost like a franchise. It's there's a little bit of a corporate, and that's a good thing because you've kind of packaged it. You know when you start a new chapter that this is what you need and so on and so forth. Talk to me about that approach. How does that approach blend being a nonprofit? And you said being a national nonprofit, which is all of those are just gigantic steps. And you've led them through a lot of that. Talk to me about the importance of that.
Yeah, I think it's really important with knowing this model that works, but there's very specific things to the model.
Yeah.
But yet we knew, like with me in Seattle or, somebody from New York City can't make it a success in LeGrand, Oregon. So we've really established it as a network where each community is a separate 501c3.
Okay.
So it's its own operating nonprofit, and we license them to implement our model.
Okay.
And we wanted to make that easier for leaders. So they contract with National for grant writing for at least the first 3 years, for finance and accounting, so they don't have to worry about that. We have almost our own CPA firm across the country for Friends of the Children that does the finances for the chapters, and that helps us also know who's on track and who might be behind.
Yeah.
We do social media and marketing for them so that the local chapter can just come in and focus on hiring the right team and implementing the model with fidelity, and then ultimately fundraising in the local community in addition to National doing that.
Okay, and so then what are the core staff? What do you need when you get something going? I mean, we know you need a friend,
Yes.
a mentor, but tell me about the other parts of it, that the other staff that you really need to have in place from the very beginning.
Yes, well, what we have learned is we want to hire the leaders who are going to be there for the next 5 years. So
Okay.
when we're looking for that executive director to hire, we're really not looking for someone for maybe the first year's budget and you're only going to have a couple people.
Right.
We're looking 5 years down the road because we don't want to have turnover if we can help it in
Right.
that position. So we hire an executive director, we hire a program director who will actually oversee the Friends, help select the children. They're trained by National, and then they have an operations director, and they'll help handle, hiring locally, paying invoices, things like that work with our accounting team. But we found that hiring those 3 leadership positions up front were really important and what you're going to need 5 years down the road. So don't wait to hire them.
Right.
Like, get things in order and working well. And so once those 3 positions are hired, then in the case of LeGrand, the first 2 Friends are hired, serving 16 children, and then each year 2 more Friends will be hired serving 16 children.
So is there enough work, like for the operations director, and you're just getting going, is there enough work for everybody to do?
Yes.
Okay.
There is.
I own a business and I have employees, and those are the things that I balance all the time, you know. So.
And it is a balance.
Yeah.
I think we learned this by trial and error, right? Like when we were first starting chapters back under Duncan, maybe we didn't have those positions, and so things weren't quite in order. And if you don't have a good organization, you're not going to be good for the children.
So then your focus is to set up this foundation, essentially. I mean, not a money foundation,
Yes.
but this foundation of operation with these positions. And the reason you spend so much time and money on that is because you're trying to build something that is way
That
bigger.
lasts and is sustainable.
Yes. Okay.
And that can grow and grow and grow.
Okay. And then as the chapter gets bigger, do you have to add more operations directors and more? I mean, does that scale out too?
What we have found so far is having the one program director, operations director, and executive director gets you at least 5 years. Beyond that, we try for no one to have more than 6 to 8 people to supervise, which is pretty standard. So when you get to the point that you have, let's say, 8 Friends, then you probably need a program manager. And so that will continue to hire. But the operations part works pretty well.
Yeah.
And, with National providing accounting and finance services, we do that at break-even cost. We're not trying to make money.
Right.
We're just trying to take it off the chapter's plate and
Right.
make sure everything's okay.
Right. So, but I would imagine there are times, though, like in our operation, if the phone rings and nobody else answers it, the owner's going to answer the phone.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, are there times in the operations that, at some point, if there's a need, even though Nisha might be the executive director, she's going to jump in to solve whatever problem that has to be solved.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
still remember our New York executive director saying, I just got done shoveling the sidewalk.
Right.
Now I'm cleaning the toilets.
Right, right.
And, that's not the aspiration, but I think we hire people who will do the job and get it done, whatever it takes, no matter what.
Well, yeah, and that would be necessary. I mean, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you can think of that you maybe would want people to understand about Friends of the Children?
I think the biggest thing is it's a model that works,
Yeah.
and we'd like to see more kids have it here in LeGrand and Eastern Oregon and all across the nation.
Yeah.
So things like this help us get the word out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Nisha did. I mean, she talked about the short-term goals of maybe getting into some of the other schools in Embler and having broaden out and being able to reach kids outside of the local LeGrand area. So, but no, what an awesome thing. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And do you like this still? I mean, is it like really, I mean, because you've been at it a while and, I mean, are you still loving it?
I love my job. I love getting up every day and making a difference for the children and families who need it the most.
Yeah.
And hearing, speaking to our graduates or hearing from someone who's really benefited from the program makes my day.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Eastern Oregon, for being here, and appreciate you taking the time. You can find all of our content at eoa.network. That takes you to a link tree where you can find our Facebook and our Roku channel and all of that information. We'll talk to you soon.